Cats, love 'em or hate 'em, they're undeniably pretty peculiar creatures. So for your viewing pleasure, I've rounded up some of the weirdest kitties the world has to offer. From faces not even a mother could love to Dracula cats and even some felines with 2 heads and 6 legs. Let's get weird with it as we check out some abnormally strange cats that actually exist. Have you ever seen a two-faced cat? No? Well, allow me to introduce you to Venus, the two-faced cat. With a face split perfectly down the center, Venus almost looks like some kind of Frankencat stitched together. So much so you'll notice that she not only has different colored eyes, but her nose is even split into 2 different colors too. But what exactly is going on here? Okay, so while different colored eyes, aka heterochromia, is a pretty rare genetic quirk in humans, it's more common in animals, including cats. However, Venus's condition goes way beyond heterochromia, with some professionals attributing her split kitty appearance to her being a chimera. That fancy word means Venus might actually be the result of 2 genetically distinct early-stage embryos that fused together in the womb. One of which possessed red tabby genetics, the other possessing black fur genetics. Pretty fascinating, huh? Despite still being somewhat of a biological mystery, Venus is otherwise completely healthy and normal. Well, as normal as a cat with over 2.2 million Instagram followers can be. Yeah, it's always a humbling feeling to realize that a literal cat is more popular than you are. Psst, go follow my Insta. But I hear ya, you still want to see a cat that actually has 2 faces, right? Well, you're in luck because this sort of thing has actually happened a handful of times. One example sprang up in 2022 when Ariel Contreras and his wife found that their cat had unexpectedly gone into labor. The kittens emerged into the world and made their first meows, and Ariel and his wife witnessed the miracle of life. Wait, what? This one has 2 heads. Yep, safe to say that the couple were pretty shocked. However freaky this might seem, there is actually an explanation. This 2-headed tabby is what's known as a Janus cat, gaining its name after the 2-faced Roman god Janus. This incredibly rare condition is due to a congenital disorder called craniofacial duplication, which, unlike our chimera cat earlier, doesn't usually involve the incomplete fusion of 2 embryos. Occurring in both humans and animals, the disorder does happen in the embryo stage, but only when there is an excessive hyperactivity from the gene responsible for instructing the width of facial features and duplication of facial structures. Put simply, this gene is responsible for the development of the face, brain, and skull. And by contrast, when the gene underperforms, it can result in the opposite, as seen in this one-eyed kitten, for which the condition is known as cyclopia, which is sadly almost always a death sentence. But returning to the Janus kitten, which the couple named Harvey, he had basically 2 of everything. 2 sets of eyes, 2 noses, 2 mouths, and even 2 brains, all squeezed into one skull. Dr. Tim Addis, the vet who dealt with Harvey, assured that if bottle-fed, Harvey would have a great chance of survival. As a matter of fact, one of the most famous 2-headed cats, Frank and Louie, made it to the ripe old age of 15. So looks like we might be seeing our 2-faced pal Harvey for a little while longer. This next cat though has not 1, not 2, but 3 heads. Okay, so admittedly I think we can assume that this is the magic of Photoshop. But see those fangs? Extended canines like that are a fairly common genetic anomaly, as made famous by a now sadly deceased cat known as Mingus. Oh, Mingus, you strange little fella. But he's not the only Dracula cat in town. A black cat named Monk also made a name for himself with his extraordinarily long fangs, measuring at 3/4 of an inch. Any longer and he'd look more like a walrus. But if long-fanged or 2-faced cats weren't already freaky enough, meet our next cat, Polly. Now to look at him, you might assume he's like any ordinary cat, though you ought to have seen him before his surgery. And no, I'm not talking about some kind of Hollywood-style facelift, but believe it or not, there was a time when Polly had 6 legs. Yep, when he was found by the Little Cats Lost Society wandering the streets of Edmonton in Canada, he had 2 extra appendages dangling from his underbelly. These were non-functional and, as you can imagine, hindered his agility. But it was Polly's lucky day as the charity immediately sought medical attention and, after some online fundraising, were able to have his spare wheels surgically removed. The question is, why did Polly have 6 legs in the first place? Well, the likely scenario was that as an embryo, Polly had absorbed a partially formed sibling in the womb. This rare anomaly can result in the growth of what appear to be extra appendages, which are remnants of the absorbed sibling. In fact, it wasn't just extra legs that Polly had borrowed from his twin, but an extra testicle too. Though unfortunately, all 3 of his baby makers were removed during the surgery. Hey, you win some, you lose some, right? Thankfully, Polly is now a happy and healthy cat with an appropriate amount of legs. Perhaps they could donate his extra legs to the Photoshopped cat from this meme, which looks as if it's missing its back too. Go ahead, buddy, take a big stretch. This image actually triggered a Photoshop battle on Reddit with submissions including Portal Cat, Smash Cat, Piano Cat, and my personal favorite, which I like to call Two-Leg Timothy. What a classy, refined gentleman. But speaking of classy cats, this next cat, Courtney, is so refined and clever that she's even mastered the little kitten's room, if you will. Damn, that cat's got a better aim than I do. And astonishingly, according to Courtney's owner, her potty usage is self-taught, seemingly having picked up the behavior from observing her owners. If I'm being honest though, it sounds like a bit of a tall tale. I mean, what's next? That Courtney has even taught herself to use the plunger too? Still, a potty-trained cat is nonetheless impressive. The same, unfortunately, cannot be said for this next cat who is evidently yet to master the litter tray. Happens to the best of us, bud. But do you know what's arguably even more unlikely than a toilet-trained cat? A cat that likes taking a bath. Yep, the species' disdain for water is far from being a secret, which, did you know, is actually due to their fur absorbing water and taking a long time to dry, making them less nimble and more vulnerable to predators. This one surprisingly enjoys the relaxation of a long soak.
You're making the water brown already.
When you finally get to relax after a long day of going through trash cans and running in front of cars, am I right? One cat that certainly isn't relaxed, by contrast, is this next little fella who seemingly lied on his resume about being able to bravely catch a mouse.
Pégale, cara, pégale.
Someone get that kitty some water to drink. He needs to calm down. Though it seems for some weird cats, drinking is easier said than done. Take a look. Yeah. Who's gonna tell him that he's not actually drinking anything? Then again, he seems chill, so who are we to get involved? Anyway, speaking of cats drinking, we all know how much cats love a tipple of milk. Unfortunately, in reality, most cats are actually lactose intolerant, meaning that consuming milk could cause them stomach pain, diarrhea, and even sickness. Still, that didn't stop this next cat who took a certain opportunity by the others and guzzled it fresh from the source. Yeah, gonna assume that's probably the most disturbing thing you've seen today. So far, that is, as I've got another clip that is arguably more unsettling. Check it out. Yep, you saw it here first, folks. A kitten feeding off a dog mother. Interestingly, it's actually not unheard of that a female dog may begin lactating, i.e. producing milk, if they live with kittens who still require nursing. This is a natural biological response in the mother animal's body to certain maternal behavior signals, like the high-pitched crying of puppies or kittens and the relative visual similarity between babies of the two species. It goes the other way too, and there have even been instances of female cats adopting baby squirrels and nursing orphaned hedgehogs. So perhaps cats and dogs aren't the natural sworn enemies we think they are. Switching gears now, remember how earlier we saw an example of a chimera cat, where multiple cats have seemingly formed together into one? Well, a chimera in the classical definition of the word represents a fusion of multiple different animals, like mermaids, manticores, and centaurs. And historically, hybrid kitties have also fallen into that category. You may assume that hybrids between cats and other animals could have no possible basis in reality, bringing to mind some wild imagery, like the snail cat Photoshop version of the stair kitty we saw earlier, or like these peacock cats created by talented CG artists on the Novum Terram world building wiki. But there's a lesser-known mythological hybrid creature with a long-standing history in cryptid folklore and a surprising basis in reality. A fusion of a cat and a rabbit known as a cabbit. They're described as having a cat-like body shape, pointed ears, short front legs, and larger hind legs. You'd be forgiven for thinking adorable Photoshop renderings are all we'll ever see of the creatures, but as I'm about to show you, there is in fact a factual basis for cabbits. In 1845, Scottish writer Joseph Train reported upon a cat-rabbit hybrid creature he observed while visiting the Isle of Man. While he was mistaken in his suggestion it was literally a hybrid of the two species, the creature he wrote of did and does exist and is in fact a cat with remarkably rabbit-like features. Let me introduce you to the Manx cat. Native to the Isle of Man, this bizarre breed is naturally tailless due to a spinal genetic mutation. Their hind legs are also longer than their front legs, giving them a slightly more rabbity movement style. Pretty weird, huh? Their unusual set of genetic mutations can sometimes cause spinal issues, but for the most part, Manx reportedly make for great pets. Similarly, cabbit-like is this next little lady, Rue, or as she is called on Instagram, Lil Bunny Sue Rue. Having been born with what her owner calls nubs in place of her front two legs, Rue has gained internet popularity due to looking like a bunny, amassing a meowsome 462,000 Instagram followers. Impressively, in spite of her disability, Rue is able to maintain full mobility and mostly gets around via just her hind legs, which admittedly does look pretty bunny-ish. But if cat rabbits aren't your cup of tea, then perhaps a wolf cat will be. Yep, did you know that there is actually a rare breed of cat that looks like a wolf? The Lycoid cat, more commonly referred to as the wolf or werewolf cat, is a breed with a unique genetic quirk that causes it to have unusual gray hair which grows less densely than regular cats, especially around the eyes, ears, and mouth. Cute or creepy? You be the judge. The scare factor is never in doubt for some cats though, like this knife-wielding criminal that will definitely Grand Theft Auto your ass if you don't give him any kibble. You've been warned. But as far as weird and spooky cats are concerned, they don't come much spookier than Oscar here. Now you might be wondering, how could a kitty that looks so normal possibly be scary? Well, with Oscar, it's not his appearance, it's his behavior. Yep, back in 2007, Oscar had quite the reputation around Rhode Island. How so? Well, belonging to a nursing home, he would patrol the hallways and provide comfort to the residents. He wasn't the friendliest cat, but would provide affection to certain people at certain specific times. And these specific times of affection are precisely where the scariness lies, because it seemed that Oscar's snuggles were, to a quite literal effect, the kiss of death. As crazy as this sounds, staff at the home noticed that when Oscar would choose to curl up in a resident's arms, they would within no more than a few hours die. This didn't just happen once, nor twice, or thrice. We're talking 25 consecutive times, documented by staff and reported by several reputable news outlets. And sure, you could put this down to coincidence, but staff were convinced that Oscar truly possessed some kind of death-predicting supernatural power. So much so that staff began alerting families when Oscar would snuggle up on their loved one's lap, fearing that they would imminently kick the bucket. But what do you think? Do you reckon Oscar really did have a death-predicting superpower, or was this all pure coincidence? Could his refined feline senses be picking up on something like certain chemicals given off by a person's body as it prepares to shut down? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Now moving on, and general weirdness aside, cats are typically known for their sleek slenderness, which allows them to effortlessly slink from one place to the next. Though that was evidently lost on this next cat, who is quite possibly the world's fattest cat. Say meow to Russian pussycat Liznaya, though with her waistline, lasagna would probably be a more fitting name. This feline fatty weighed in at a scale-breaking 26 pounds at her heaviest, more than double the average house cat weight, which left her with a floor-sweeping underbelly and severely limited mobility. Other complications of being a plus-size puss could possibly include a weakened immune system, metabolic disorders, cardiovascular disease, and arthritis, just to name a few. But despite this cat looking like a relative of Jabba the Hutt, Liznaya's owner claims she has, quote, never tried to overfeed her. Instead, she insists that Liznaya rapidly began to gain weight following a pregnancy. Happened to my wife too.
Huh?
What? Nothing, sweetie. Just telling my viewers how gorgeous you are. Still, even since being on a vet-recommended diet and apparently losing 6 pounds, Liznaya continues to resemble a literal fur ball. Now that's a real chonker. Alright, so while Liznaya is undoubtedly large in width, what about the world's longest cat? Well, back in 2015, the official Guinness World Record title for longest cat was claimed by a Maine Coon named Ludo from West Yorkshire in England. Long-bodied Ludo measured in at an impressive 3 feet and 10.59 inches, which, FYI, is about the height of an average 7-year-old child. But by 2017, there was a new cat on the block, an even bigger cat, Omar, a Maine Coon from Australia who reportedly measured 3 feet and 11 inches. However, while Omar was set to become the next reigning champ, he was pipped to the post by Baravel, an Italian stallion Maine Coon who is 3 feet and 11.2 inches long, and is currently the official world record holder. Now, it's important to note, if you didn't already know, that Maine Coons are considered one of the largest breeds of domesticated cats, so it's hardly surprising the world record for longest cat is held by, indeed, a Maine Coon. In fact, it's actually not uncommon for the average Maine Coon to grow up to about 3 feet and 3 inches, which eclipses the average domestic cat that sprawls out to typically around 2 feet long. At that point, you've basically got a pet dog, right? Moving on now, and we all know that cats are very agile creatures. I mean, they don't say a cat always lands on its feet for nothing. But taking this agility to a whole nother level is this next cat, who has some pretty gnarly skills on the board. Check it out. Now that's a cool cat. While the motivation to get on the board is certainly unique, the ability to balance is hardly surprising. Cats possess highly flexible spines, counterbalancing tails, and finely tuned inner ears, which allow them to precisely orient themselves even while in the air, collectively contributing to an amazing ability to balance while in motion. Yet again proving that cats are correct in thinking that they are better than us. On to something a little weirder now, and this strange-looking Sphinx cat is called Lucy, though she's better known as the Bat Cat. With her striking appearance, it's easy to see why she has been given such a nickname. Her bat-like looks are in part due to her breed being a hairless Sphinx cat, but also partially due to a rare condition known as hydrocephalus. This is essentially where there's an excess of cerebrospinal fluid in the brain, which can cause seizures, blindness, and neurological dysfunction, not to mention the physical characteristics of a dome-shaped skull. Life certainly hasn't been an easy ride for Lucy, from initially experiencing bowel incontinence to needing surgery on her eyelids due to her misshapen skull. However, having now ironed out all of her health conditions, Lucy is somewhat of an online celeb. What with her having a somewhat impressive 31,000 Instagram followers. Finally, a cat that I have more Instagram followers than. Oh, come on, Lucy, don't look at me like that. You know I love you. Anyway, while we're on the topic of peculiar-looking Sphinx cats, allow me to introduce you to Sherdan. Apologies for the jump scare. Hardly a mystery, though, as to why he's been dubbed the world's scariest looking cat. But despite looking like some demon that clawed its way from the depths of hell, his owner insists he's a, quote, very lovely cat. And while you might assume Sheridan has some kind of condition which causes him to look this way, the truth is, he's just a very wrinkly guy. I mean, let's not forget that a normal Sphinx cat is pretty wrinkly anyway due to their excess skin, not to mention terrifying. I mean, just take a look at this one with all its wrinkles pulled tight. It's like a raw chicken had a baby with a potato. Oddly mesmerizing, intriguing, yet highly disturbing. Back to Sheridan, though. His owner grew their Instagram page to 40,000 followers before having it tragically hacked. I mean, who would do such a thing? One like equals one prayer for Sheridan and Sandra. Go on, give the like button some scritches, and why not subscribe too? You'd be making this old boy's dreams come true. Anyway, back to the video now, and when it comes to distinctive looking cats, they don't come much more distinctive than this next little fella, Wilfred. Jesus, what even is that?
What is that? What the is that?
With his bulging green eyes and severe underbite, the poor puss constantly looks as if he's been on the losing end of a vicious catfight. And while some might be quick to assume Wilfred's striking look of dishevelment is maybe a Photoshop job, I can in fact confirm that he is all natural. Weird-looking Wilfred has been capturing the internet's imagination since 2018, becoming the center of many a meme. Particularly memes of the Steve Buscemi variety, with many spotting a resemblance between the two. Oddly enough, Wilfred isn't the only cat that has been specifically likened to Steve Buscemi. This next cat, Marla, is better known on the web as the Buscemi cat, and with her wide eyes, unfortunate underbite, and strangely human-like face, it's easy to see why.
How do you do, fellow kids?
God, that's terrifying. I dread to imagine this demon-faced feline crawling up onto my bed in the middle of the night. There's often a fine line between ugly and cute. But let me know in the comments whether this kitty takes it a little too far with that 1,000-yard stare. But if we're talking about truly bizarre-looking cats, then get a load of this one, who I can only assume is called Dobby the house cat. A face only a mother could love, with ears so big it could probably take flight in a strong wind. This weird-looking puss belongs to the Siamese breed, which are famous for their oversized ears, making them look more like a Pokemon than a pet. And speaking of pocket monsters, when one woman was attempting to treat her cat's fungal infection, she decided to apply a turmeric scrub to the pure white cat. Needless to say that the poor cat ended up a fluorescent shade of yellow. And with just a few more markings, could probably make a pretty good real-life Pikachu. I'm now suddenly realizing that I need a real-life Pikachu. Adorable. In a similar vein, in 2017, one cat was spotted prowling the streets of Varna, Bulgaria with a bright blue-green hairdo. Locals were baffled by the sight of the stray, but were eventually able to follow it to the source of its peculiar coloration. A large abandoned paint can which it had been using as a shelter, picking up the residual hues of the interior. On the topic of kitty hairstyling, this cat here has so much fur that it was able to get this sweet mohawk cut that makes it look like some kind of dragon cat hybrid. Bizarrely, this style of cat cut, known as a dragon cut, isn't a one-off. Countless examples exist of felines given this questionable fashion treatment. And while the dragon title of those trims is questionable, I've got something genuinely fierce for you up next. Ever wanted to know what it would look like if a cat and a grizzly bear had a baby? Well, wonder no more, as that's pretty much what a palace cat looks like. And while they haven't actually been signed up to any armies like you see in this funny Photoshop, these little beasts are definitely real. Found mainly in parts of Central Asia, palace cats are one of the smallest species of wild cat, though their broad heads and thick fur still leave them looking kinda chonky. Don't try to pet them though. Their temperament is said to be similar to that of larger wildcats, making them innately aggressive. I know, hard to resist. Okay, maybe just a little scratch. Here, kitty kitty. Yeah! Well, on that note, I'm off to see the human veterinarian. But let me know, what's the weirdest cat you've ever encountered? Meow your thoughts down in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.